guys? It's JJ.
I'm Caleb.
And yes,
we're in the kitchen.
Yeah. Lighting was a struggle tonight, but
it's a late night film session. We normally don't do these.
Yeah, but I had work, so
yeah,
well, we had a very crazy
great weekend
of college football.
After last week's Nobody Cares games, it finally felt like college football this week, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, we saw a great week of college football. First order of business, I guess, is Nebraska dropped a game at home to Georgia Southern.
Which
the first Sun Belt team.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I knew it, John James.
The first Sun Belt team to upset a team. We'll get to another one, and then another close Sun Belt upset as well. But yeah. So the first Sun Belt team to strike was Georgia Southern, beat Nebraska, and then by Sunday at noon, the news has broke that Scott Frost has been fired by Nebraska. I saw something that if they had waited 3 more weeks to fire him, they'd have given him less of a buyout. The buyout for his contract was $15 million. So if I'm the Scott Frost, yes, I'd love to still be coaching at my alma mater, but
$15 million.
I just got paid $15 million. Technically, if you're smart with your money, you can live off $15 million for the rest of your life.
Oh, for sure. Easily.
Now, will he? Nah, probably not. Coaches and athletes aren't normally the best with their money.
Do you think he's going to end up at Alabama? It happens a lot.
Possibly.
You see it all the time.
But, I will say, when this hire happened, I thought this was the guy to bring Nebraska back to their dominance.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Late 90s, Nebraska was, to put it in perspective, like an Ohio State.
Oh, absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
Nebraska was one of the top teams. Them, Florida State, another one. And I really thought, he did a great job at UCF. He made them what they are today.
Absolutely.
For some reason, it just didn't translate to Nebraska.
I don't know what it really was. I don't feel like it was a lack of talent.
No.
I don't. It wasn't a lack of recruiting. I felt like he had the locker room.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing because you would think that it would work out.
On paper, it looked like it'd work out.
It's his alma mater. He's good with players. We saw it at UCF. He knows how to coach. Yeah. Obviously, he took UCF to being undefeated and beating SEC teams and
good SEC teams at that.
So it's weird that it didn't work out. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it didn't, and maybe that's just the Nebraska curse.
Now I guess we can kind of briefly touch on who we think the next Nebraska coach will be. I've got a list here that I'm going to read off some names that are most of them. He's not on this list, but that was going to be at the end who I talked about. But there are a lot of names on here that it's just you're not getting this guy. But first name on the list, Mark Stoops. He's not leaving Kentucky to rebuild Nebraska.
Absolutely. Why would he? He's got job security for life at Kentucky.
Yeah. If he keeps winning 8 or 9 games a season, they'll keep him for as long as he wants.
And he could have a few 6-win seasons as long as he gets a bowl game at Kentucky.
After how Kentucky was before he got there.
Kentucky had the hefty lefty days, and then
he'll have to have a few losing seasons in a row before he's. You're not getting Mark Stoops. Matt Campbell at Iowa State. You're not getting him. There have been plenty of other better jobs that have come trying to get him away from Iowa State that he's already turned down. You're not. He was interviewed for USC job, LSU job. He's not at any of those. Now, I don't think he was ever technically offered because he was like their second or third choice.
Right.
But still.
Iowa State's a similar situation to Mark Stoops. He keeps winning 8 or 9 games a year.
Yeah. And to a Nebraska team that's not obviously not set up to win right off the bat.
Absolutely.
The most sensible name probably on this list is Mickey Joseph, who is the Nebraska interim coach.
Yeah.
That would be a possible name. Another name I like here is Bill O'Brien at Alabama. We'd see another one of the Saban minions or whatever they're called. But had great success at Penn State, and that's what got him an NFL job. He even had some success for a year or two in the NFL with the Houston Texans. Obviously, once he got promoted to GM and coach, that never seems to work. I don't know why teams still try it. That's just too much for one guy to handle, honestly.
It works in 2K.
Yeah, but that's different. So I could see that being a very good fit. Jim Leonard, Wisconsin's defense coordinator, I don't really know much on that, so I can't really.
I mean, if the Giants suck it up this year, Joe Judge.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe Judge was almost Mississippi State's head coach.
Joe Judge had an offer from Mississippi State and had basically accepted and started putting his staff together when the Giants offered him, and at that point, you got to take the Giants offer. It's an NFL job with more money.
I mean, absolutely. I don't blame him at all for not coming to Starkville, Mississippi when he could go to New York and coach it. Like, I don't blame him at all. But
I mean, the only draw there was he played at State, but
But I mean, with
I
how
think
bad
he'd
the
been
Giants
a great coach at State, but
with how bad the Giants have been, I could totally see him getting let go this year. And
well, he's not their head coach anymore.
Yeah.
He's not even with the Giants anymore. He's with the Patriots again.
Oh snap! I didn't even realize that. I could see Joe Judge going to Nebraska.
He's back under Bill Belichick. So yeah, maybe Gary Patterson, who made TCU into a Power 5 team. They were remember before he took the job, they were a Mountain West team that was okay, and he made them into a contender for years, and then a very good Big 12 team for years to come.
Urban Meyer.
And then that's the next name on the list. But I read an article, because that's, of course, the name everybody wants to throw out. But it made a really good point. I think it was actually a TikTok, but it made a really good point that I agree with. Urban Meyer is at the point with his legacy that would he really want to go to a Nebraska where he's not set up to win, where he'd have to rebuild a program basically, or would he rather wait out for maybe people are already wanting to fire Brian Kelly, an LSU job, or Auburn, something where you're set up even better to win, if he even wants another coaching job at this point.
I mean, he took the Jacksonville job.
But that was more of a draw because I think he wanted to coach in the NFL than it was. I don't see him wanting the Nebraska job.
I mean, I don't either. It's a stretch, but it's just a name to throw out there. Like I said, I already coughed out who I think is going to take the job and who I think is going to get the job.
I think Dan Mullen would be a great hire. I like Gary Patterson. I like that name on there. I hadn't really thought about that. Bill O'Brien, I like that name. But these first two, Matt Campbell and Mark Stoops, I don't see that happening. But
I'll be real quick. Just this last point before we move on. Dan Mullen will be the best hire for Nebraska. He would do what he did at Mississippi State, where he'd consistently be in a bowl and a lot of times win 7, 8, 9 games a season. But in the Big Ten, I could see him, winning 10 games in a couple of seasons, and obviously,
but
he would never get past Ohio State.
And
Ohio State
he's not, or Michigan at this point.
I think Michigan's going to fall off in a few years again. I mean,
I don't know. Jim Harbaugh. You saw what he did at Stanford, and now that he's got Michigan in the top,
I could see him falling off in a couple of years. But anyway, I think. But then again, the Big Ten is even as great as the Big Ten is. It's not the SEC.
Yeah,
and I think Nebraska is easier to recruit to than Mississippi State.
I don't know if I'd say that anymore.
I would 100% say that because I'd rather play in the Big Ten for a big school like Nebraska than the SEC for a small school like Mississippi State. Well, you're from Mississippi, JJ, but.
I would rather play at any SEC school besides Missouri and Vanderbilt than Nebraska.
I don't think that's how.
At this point,
I don't think that's how a lot of recruits were going to look at it. And I also think Dan Mullen's system can work. His offensive system can work in the Big Ten. I just think that's the best hire for Nebraska.
I don't think Dan Mullen would bring Nebraska back to national championship contender.
I don't either.
Nebraska's recruiting is not anywhere near what it used to be because anybody in the Midwest that is good now goes to either Oklahoma or Texas, and Nebraska's not luring a 4-star even from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida,
but Dan Mullen knows how to develop talent. He can take those 3 stars. He can take 3 stars and take them to the NFL. That's what he does very well.
Yeah, but like I said, I see him being what he was at Mississippi State.
I see him being a little better just because I think the Big Ten is easier competition week in and week out. But
yeah, it is, but I don't know. Maybe.
Not a national championship contender, but I don't think any of these coaches are going to do that for Nebraska anyways.
Let's talk about the next crazy game of the day. Texas A&M App State. I didn't get to watch it much. I've gone back and watched highlights, but Texas A&M's offense, from what I've seen, looks absolutely terrible.
They do.
The defense only gave up 17 points to a team that scored 61 the week before, so I guess the defense you can't technically gripe a lot on, but their offense is awful. And I said this at the beginning of the season. Texas A&M is a great team, has tons of talent, but they don't have a quarterback, and that's what's going to hurt them, and it's showing that's what hurts them right now. They have great receivers, great running back. I'm sure they have a great offensive line, great defense, and they have a quarterback that is probably 12th in the SEC, 12th best in the SEC.
And Texas A&M should not be ranked anymore. They're 24th. They shouldn't be.
I'd say Haynes King probably shouldn't be the starter, but I don't think Max Johnson is any better. I really think out of the three that they would have had on this roster, Zach Calzada is the best one.
Absolutely. And he beat Alabama.
And then, he transfers out because they weren't going to play him. It was going to be Haynes King, or then they brought in Max Johnson. And so at that point he said, I'm out, which, I still don't think Zach Calzada is a great quarterback, but I think
he's better than those.
When we just named our other two options.
And he fit Texas A&M's system better.
Yeah, he was good enough. Like when I brought up the Texas A&M didn't have the quarterback to win games, you brought up the old Alabama teams that had, say, Greg McElroy, Blake Sims, Jake Coker. But those guys were at least good enough that they could throw the ball every once in a while just to be able to keep a defense honest and respected enough. A&M can run the ball, but they can't. They have no passing game, so you could load 8 in the box. They have no quarterback that's good enough to bring anything to the table at all.
It was stupid because Zach Calzada did bring something to the table.
He was.
You had to respect him.
Yeah, that was my point. He was on the level of those Blake Sims, Jake Coker,
100%.
who were never a top SEC quarterback even, but they were in the mid tier to where they were good enough when they had all these weapons around them that made them look like in some games a top SEC quarterback just because everybody around them was so good. Like that Alabama game, Zach Calzada looked very good. And the next week against Mississippi State, or the week before against Mississippi State, he didn't. He looked mediocre at best. But that was still better than anything I've seen from an A&M quarterback so far this season.
I agree, 100%.
And I think that's what's hurting them right now. I think that's what has made them barely beat Sam Houston State and then lose to App State, which App State is one of the best group of 5 teams every year.
100%.
But still, Texas A&M was supposedly a playoff contender this year.
They were a top 10 team at this point.
They were ranked 6.
Yeah.
And a lot of people had them preseason national. Desmond Howard picked them to win the national championship.
Well, he's not smart.
But yeah, but a lot of people had them in the playoffs as well. And with the recruiting class and the NIL money, I thought they would at least be around the playoff talk. Thought the only game they probably lose is Alabama. But now, I think they should be in the top 25.
I had Texas A&M only losing to Alabama. And depending on how Georgia did, if you're going to have 2 SEC teams in the
there were several people I saw that had Alabama and A&M in the playoffs, and I wouldn't argue with that earlier. But now that I've seen that I expected Texas quarterback, A&M's quarterback, to be bad. They have been worse than I thought coming in.
100%.
Notre Dame, Marshall. Notre Dame gets beat by Marshall after playing Ohio State pretty close. Everybody thought maybe Notre Dame's better than we thought they were. And then they lose to Marshall. I was at another game working, so I didn't watch the game. But
I watched the end of it, and there's this crazy stat I saw. I can't remember the name of their coach. It's
Marcus Freeman.
Yeah,
first one to lose his first 3 games at Notre Dame.
That's insane.
I think he is a good coach.
I agree.
I don't think that is indicative of what he's going to do in the future. I still think he'll have Notre Dame, especially if they're not in a conference winning 9 or 10, 11 games a year. But they obviously aren't that good this year. They looked, well, I'm not going to say that, because they looked very good week 1.
Yeah.
Everybody was thinking maybe, they're not a playoff team, but you could make an argument after seeing them play week 1 that they deserve to be in the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because Ohio State's the third best team in the country.
Yeah.
And we talked about, you got Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and then everyone else.
Yeah.
But you played them very well.
But then you go lose to Marshall, and that's all out the window. Next game, Texas, Alabama. If Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt in that game, Texas wins that game by 2 touchdowns.
Do you really believe that?
Yes, 100%.
I don't know, man. I'll be real.
Quinn Ewers.
It's Alabama. They find ways to win games.
Okay. The only reason Alabama won that game was because of Bryce Young. And anybody that wants to argue with me that he is not the Heisman favorite right now is delusional.
Same reason they beat Auburn last year. Because Bryce Young is clutch. And he doesn't fold under pressure.
First 3 quarters, I would say, he did not look good. But in the 4th quarter, when they were still in the game, he looked, and that's what I think is a Heisman winner.
Absolutely.
And he won it last year, and people are still saying C.J. Stroud is the favorite. You cannot tell me that
C.J. Stroud's not the favorite.
After what Bryce Young did in the 4th quarter.
At the beginning of the year, and I honestly think C.J. Stroud's more talented. I think he's a better quarterback. But right now, you can't tell me he deserves the Heisman over Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud is going to have to do something great, which he very well could, and Bryce Young will have to mess up for me to say, especially, he was unstoppable in that 4th quarter, but on the other side, Quinn Ewers looked amazing when he was in there.
He did look very good.
Texas drove the ball on Alabama like it was nothing.
I know.
If he doesn't get hurt, I think Texas is up 2 or 3 touchdowns going into the 4th quarter where Bryce Young can't get them back in the game, no matter how good he plays.
I
think Texas wins by at least a touchdown if Quinn Ewers is in.
I don't think so, just because Alabama finds a way to win. It's what they do. But I will say, that is the worst I've seen Alabama look ever.
Yeah.
In my life. Not ever. Not ever. Because 2006 and 7. But that's the worst I've seen Alabama look under Nick Saban.
Yeah. Alabama
did not look bad. Will Anderson was getting multiple penalties. He doesn't do that. He's a Heisman favorite.
Not anymore.
Because he played so bad. But he was a Heisman favorite.
I think it's, at this point, impossible for a defense player to win the Heisman again. But if a defense player was going to win the Heisman, Will Anderson was going to do it, but not anymore. That was awful. And, he had 3 offside penalties, and these weren't SEC refs.
That's insane.
So that, it's kind of a stupid question, but it begs the question. Is he always offsides, but the SEC ref just doesn't call it?
I don't think he's always offsides.
Which is a possibility because the SEC refs in Alabama kind of married. But, I'm not going to say, I'm not saying that, I'm just kind of being funny saying that. But
obviously he's not always offside.
Yeah, but,
it's just, I don't know if it was nerves or if it was the crowd or the heat maybe. I don't know what it was.
He was amped up and did not like I said, I think if Quinn Ewers does not get hurt, Texas wins this game by at least a touchdown.
And that's like the whole Colt McCoy argument all over again. But I don't think they do just because it's Alabama. I think they find a way to win.
I will say, if Quinn Ewers is still in and Alabama plays exactly the same as they did, they don't win.
That's fair.
I think with your argument, what would have had to happen was Alabama would have had to turn it on sooner than they did. Mm-hmm. So if Alabama plays exactly like they did and Quinn Ewers is in for Texas the entire game, I would say Texas wins by at least a touchdown.
So do you think that this game, do you think Texas is the real deal or do you
Yes.
think Alabama just played very bad?
Both. I think Texas is a top 10 team. I'm not saying Texas is a playoff contender. Texas is with Quinn Ewers at quarterback, Texas is a top 10 team. I've said it since the beginning of the year. I expected Texas to finish the year top 10. And I'd say after this weekend, if Quinn Ewers, I haven't seen an injury update on him. If Quinn Ewers is back for the rest of the season, Texas is a top 10 team. I don't think Texas loses another game. Maybe Oklahoma, but I think they're better than Oklahoma if Quinn Ewers is at quarterback.
It's one of those rivalry games that you never know.
Yeah, but I think Texas is the real deal. I think Alabama also played awful.
They did play bad.
And we'll see a different Alabama team on the way out.
I 100% believe Alabama was not the better team on the field that day.
Hey, look.
I don't think Alabama was the better team on the field.
Yeah.
But, they find a way to pull it out. They're Alabama. That's what they do. I have a question. Safety or no safety?
Safety.
100% safety, thank you. It was intentional grounding.
Yeah.
And when the flag came out, I was 100% sure that's intentional grounding.
At least, they didn't call. They took back the roughing the passer, even though they weren't supposed to.
No, it's the way the referee announced the play wrong. It was.
Yeah, but technically, if he announced it like that, that's a whole different argument.
With the new rules and stuff about how the ref game is ref, they're allowed to do that because it was announced wrong. It wasn't roughing the passer; it was targeting.
Was it announced wrong, or did the replay announcer just say this is wrong?
It was announced wrong because he even explained when he came back that the ref who threw the flag.
Yeah, I know he said that, but is that really what happened, or did the replay announcer just say, if you say this, we can get out of it with the loophole type thing?
I don't know.
Either way,
it should have been a safety. It was supposed to be targeting.
Yeah.
And then, you see a helmet come off, and if it's a scrap, I understand throwing the flag and reviewing it.
It wasn't even close to targeting.
It wasn't. I understand throwing the flag to see, but it wasn't supposed to be roughing the passer.
It definitely wasn't roughing the passer. It shouldn't have been targeting. It should have been a safety.
Yeah.
But at least it wasn't a personal foul that gives Alabama a first down there.
But 2 points, Texas wins the game.
But I definitely, like I said, I think Texas puts up 21, 28 points because I think those 2 field goals Texas has, at least one of those Texas puts it in the end zone with Quinn Ewers. But, you'll never know.
We'll never know, and that's what sucks. I mean,
it was a crazy week of college football. Hopefully this is just a preview of what the rest of the season's going to be like. But, yeah, that's all I've got.
Is Alabama still your national championship favorite?
Yeah.
Over Georgia?
Yeah.
That was funny.
But, yeah, yes. Alabama's not going to play like this the rest of the season.
I agree.
And, I still think by the national championship game, Nick Saban is going to have them playing to the best of their ability. And at their best, they're still better than Georgia. I think the gap is not what we thought it was at the beginning of the season. But I would still pick Alabama.
It just depends on how both teams look by the end of the year.
I mean you got to say... Yes,
even last year, Alabama destroyed Georgia in the SEC championship.
And also, you got to think, a lot of this Georgia hype is coming because they destroyed Oregon. Yes, they looked very good, but Oregon was very overrated. I'm not arguing that Georgia's not the second best team and a very, 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 very close second. And I could very well see my pick changing by the end of the year, but yeah, I'd still have Alabama today. But, yeah.
But give Stetson Bennett some respect. For the love of all that is good, how is he not ranked as a top 5 quarterback in the SEC?
He is, now.
Now, he should have been at the beginning of the year.
He's 4.
He's 4-3. He's 4. Sometimes I think he's better than Will Rogers. But... give him and Will Rogers respect, because neither one of them get the respect they deserve. Yeah. Let's be real.
All right, we've gone way longer than we said we were going to and thought we were.
About 4 minutes.
I said 10 minutes.
Oh, I thought we were going 20. My fault.
But yeah, it doesn't matter. We got into a good talk. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Yeah, check out all the videos on the channel. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. Yeah, see y'all next week.